Welcome to this special podcast series sponsored by 6clicks, series Spotlight, Revolutionizing GRC with 6clicks. Over the next 5 episodes, I visit with Joe Shore, Vice President of Global Channel Sales, Andrew Robinson, Co-founder and Chief Information Security Officer, Stephen Walter, Head of Marketing, Dr. Heather Bucher, Chief Technology Officer, and Ant Stevens, Co-founder and Chief Executive Officer. Over this series, we will break down the 6clicks hub and spoke approach, utilizing artificial intelligence and machine learning in governance, risk, and compliance, curating and maintaining a robust GRC content, producing audit-ready reports, and look at what is next for 6clicks down the road. And now a word about 6clicks. 6clicks is your complete operating system for risk and compliance. The perfect interplay of content and functionality. Implement any risk and compliance program supercharged with the world's first AI engine for GRC practitioners. No matter the size of your company or the depth of project given to your advisory. White labeled, automated, fast, clear, and agile GRC. That's 6clicks. In this concluding episode 5, I visit with co-founder and CEO Ant Stevens. We talk about what's down the road for 6clicks and his philosophy of innovation. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and we are here for our concluding episode on our series Spotlight, Revolutionizing GRC with 6clicks. Today, I have with me Ant Stevens. He's the co-founder and CEO of 6clicks. So, Ant, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here.
Ant, I really enjoy podcasts where I get to talk about that veiled land of the future. So I'm going to call upon you to help us talk about what's next for 6clicks. So what's the future of 6clicks? Where do you see not only the company going, but your clients, your customers, your stakeholders, your audience? And we've talked about throughout this podcast series, the building blocks of GRC and how I think you guys are positioned to help the GRC consultant, the GRC in-house compliance professional, and frankly, the GRC profession just have an explosion of growth. So no pressure at all, but where do you see us going from this point?
Thanks, Tom. That's a great tee up. And yeah, maybe I can just share a little bit about sort of the mission that we have as a business. In essence, when we founded 6clicks now 2 and a bit years ago, we saw the opportunity to do a couple of things. One was bring affordable, very accessible, and very easy to use GRC capability to lots of businesses around the world. And as you probably know, many of the incumbent players, the software is very complex, it's hard to use, the feedback's pretty negative, and it's certainly expensive. So that was our first mission. The second related mission was to ensure that the platform was effective in driving productivity gains for both businesses and advisors. And by advisors, I mean lawyers, accountants, general business management consultants, and business advisors. And so the platform was architected from the ground up to meet both of those needs. The thing is, when we thought about GRC, we identified some things that were necessary for us to have in place just to compete effectively in the market. But then there were other things that we felt were necessary to support the next generation of GRC product, which we certainly see ourselves as. And so we broke down the foundational building blocks into effectively 4 things. The first was functionality that supports the processes related to risk and compliance, or governance, risk and compliance. The second was content, and by content we mean audit and assessment templates, risk libraries, policies and control sets, standards, laws and regulations, basically all of the text or the reference points that companies need in order to make that functionality sing. The third thing was we saw the future, and we certainly see the future as having artificial intelligence baked in to lots of areas of the product. The reason for that, and I'll talk about that a bit more soon, but the reason for that is to take complex activities or time-consuming activities and make them a lot easier. And the final building block was the point I raised at the start, which was to say that the architecture of the 6clicks platform has been designed to support what we call a hub and spoke type approach, which is very effective for situations where you have a parent and lots of children. And for example, that's useful for advisors with lots of clients. It's useful for multinationals with lots of divisions, useful for private equity companies with lots of holding companies. So yeah, they're the four building blocks that we sort of focus on, and we keep moving around and making those things better and better every week, every day. That's kind of what drives or creates a foundation for us in terms of innovation.
And in an earlier podcast with your co-founder, Andrew Robinson, we talked about AI and machine learning. And I expressed, it seems to me that compliance professionals, GRC professionals, tend to either be terrified of AI, thrilled with AI, or perhaps both. I tend to fall in the thrilled camp for the following reason. Compliance for the longest time did not have access to data. Then they finally got access to data in the corporation. But then they had to collect that data and they had to put that in a platform that they could use it. But a compliance professional can be someone like me. I'm a legally trained lawyer and I can't interpret it. So you had to be able to interpret it. But the thing that excites me about 6clicks and what you guys are talking about is you're going far beyond that level. It's not just a collection of data. It's not adding in the regulatory components literally across the world with the hub and spoke model, but it's actually using that data to create greater business efficiencies and greater profitability. It's a very long-winded way of introducing the AI component. And I wanted to ask you, where do you see AI component in the GRC space? Where is it taking GRC, and where do you see some of the next major steps for the GRC consultant or professional?
Yeah, I think at a strategic level, I've looked at the application of artificial intelligence in this space for a very long time. I think I broadly categorize the application of AI into two buckets. One is to help businesses automate or streamline what otherwise would be complex and time-consuming activity. And the second bucket would be to identify things in data that as a professional, as a human or as a professional human, we would struggle to do effectively without the use of some sort of technology. And in the first case, we invested very early on in Haley, which no doubt has been talked about in some of the other podcasts in this series. But Haley is our artificial intelligence engine. We actually started developing that right from the very outset. And at the moment, Haley helps companies with two major challenges. One is to identify similarity across standards, laws, and regulations that they need to comply with, which obviously is a huge benefit to companies. Most companies have to do this manually using spreadsheets and multiple tabs and VLOOKUPs and those sorts of approaches to try and work out where the overlap is, because inevitably jurisdictions around the world, are all seeking to do similar things. They're not identical, but similar, but businesses need to think about that in a unified way. So that's the first application, which is identifying similarity across standards, laws, and regulations. Second one is we've released just recently is to take an existing control framework within a company and quickly identify where the gaps are relative to a standard law or regulation. And this is what compliance professionals do all the time. We just do this manually. And now with Haley, our artificial intelligence engine, we can do that in seconds. I think the opportunity in the GRC space is to continue to apply artificial intelligence in those sorts of ways, but also to start to think about how we can use artificial intelligence to identify, trends or insights into data that otherwise would be difficult to identify. For example, taking incidents and looking for those that are similar or that might be demonstrating a broader trend or an issue within an organisation. Or alternatively, risks and trying to understand overlap or similarity between different risks so that treatment plans and remediation activity can be more effectively targeted. So we're actually running a process at the moment to really think quite a long way out in terms of the application of artificial intelligence in the GRC space. I think there's huge amounts of opportunity, simple stuff, just automation, taking complex tasks and making them easier, right through to insights that people would otherwise struggle with. So it's a very exciting space. The sort of technology we use is natural language processing and machine learning. Those are the two building blocks in the AI space that we use pretty consistently. We have to do that. Natural language processing is for us to understand the meaning behind the text in a computerized or intelligent manner. And the machine learning is to then make recommendations or identify patterns. So, yeah, it's a fascinating space.
So can I maybe turn now more specifically to 6clicks and ask if there's anything in the near term or a little bit longer out that you could share with us, maybe coming out?
Like before Christmas, we run a pretty fast pace of innovation and release cycles. Any of our customers around the world would appreciate that, which is exciting and certainly drives productivity. We're releasing a couple of major things this side of Christmas. One is a brand new analytics platform. We're embedding data storytelling, dashboarding, reporting, all sorts of insights triggered from the data within our system. We're taking our current reporting engine and basically supercharging that. I think that will position 6clicks is without doubt the most capable reporting and analytics platform in the world when it comes to GRC. It's particularly exciting stuff at the moment. The other thing is we've got, particularly for cybersecurity professionals, capability to help businesses with ingesting threat and vulnerability data into the platform and then correlating that with other GRC processes within 6clicks. So that's great. We're going to take feeds from Nessus and Qualys and, penetration testing, scanning tools like that and integrate them seamlessly into 6clicks. The other one is we've got some capability to help companies automate the identification of risks and issues associated with an audit or assessment activity. And this is all about streamlining processes for advisors in particular and organisations repeatedly undertaking audit and assessment activity. So that's a lot. Christmas is 8 weeks away or something like that, and we're excited to release that in the very near term.
What about then a little bit longer term, maybe 12 months or even a little bit further out? Anything you could give us a teaser about?
Yeah. Well, we're sort of our mission focusing on making GRC affordable and accessible for businesses and doing that for advisors and businesses is certainly driving what we focus on today and into the long term. To that end, I think there's so much scope to further automate processes for advisors, and we're going to focus on that. It's very easy to see that in the industry when you talk to, lawyers, accountants, business advisors, etc., and you ask them, how do you do it today? Most of them refer to emails, Word documents, and spreadsheets. And to me, that represents huge opportunity for innovation. So we're going to look at tools, techniques to enable them to, A, make things easier, but B, also open up opportunities to make money and, grow their businesses, which is certainly part of our agenda. The other thing that I think, probably 12 months out, Tom, is that when we talk about content, at the moment, the way our platform works is content is available in the system via what we call a marketplace. That marketplace can be tailored by advisors for their clients. But what we want to do is take that to the next level and allow individuals to seamlessly share as part of their community in a crowdsourced context, content or best practice that they've identified within the 6clicks platform and make that available to other 6clicks users around the world. So in the same way that we've seen crowdsourced or community-based platforms in the graphic design industry or in the blog and authoring industry or, plenty of other areas in the market, we want to bring that same sort of capability into the world of risk and compliance. And then the third thing is obviously making Haley, our artificial intelligence engine, a lot more pervasive, I'd say. Probably the coverage of Haley at the moment in our app is probably about 20-30%. It's sort of almost mind-boggling to think about how transformative the application of AI will be if we roll it out across the entire application, across all areas of function. So they're the sorts of things that we're focused on, and we're going to keep pushing on each one of those three areas over the next 12 months, and I'm sure there'll be some pretty exciting stuff released next year.
And one of the reasons I love doing these podcasts, particularly with entrepreneurs and innovators such as yourself, is really talking about innovation. So I come from a legal background, not a lot of innovation in the legal space. But there's lots of different players that drive innovation, and one of those is the regulators saying you have to do this, you have to comply with that. And that's one set of stakeholders. Obviously, corporations or your client base is another set of stakeholders. But you're a stakeholder in the innovation process because you thought this up and then you implemented it, and you're continuing to continually improve both Haley, the 6clicks suite of offerings, and a wide variety of other areas. So I was wondering if I could maybe just ask you, what's your sort of philosophy and approach around ensuring you hit the mark in innovation, recognizing there are multiple players just in the innovation process? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tom. I spent my life, I started writing software back when I was 12 or 13. 30 years later, that's giving you a hint at my age, but 30 odd years later, I still think innovation is a fascinating art or science, and one that I think is so critical at the moment, especially with the challenges around the world related to, cybersecurity, the environment, some of these big macro thematics. It's very important for us to become more effective at the way that we address innovation or focus on innovation. For us at 6clicks, we have a sort of 3-horizon model in the way that we think about innovation. One is to focus obviously on the very immediate needs that customers have, things that might not be working the way they expect or things that could be improved very obviously based on feedback. The next horizon is stuff in the near term, and this is typically a combination of things that people have told us that they need or that they've expressed some sort of interest in having. But it's also combined with our view of where the opportunity lies in terms of improvement. So it's a bit of a combination of the two. And that's a balance we have to strike. We strike that by being sufficiently bold about the future that we see, but at the same time grounded in it and getting feedback from customers. And the third horizon is stuff that we think about in a much more abstract way, where we're thinking about the world as we see it, or the way that we think the world should work. That requires a lot of creativity. We're not really overly influenced by direct customer feedback there, because we want to remain reasonably free and creative in terms of that view. So I think the trick with innovation is to actually keep the balance with those 3 horizons running in parallel. I feel as if some companies, when they think about innovation, it's all about just releasing stuff quickly, but they lose sight of the vision, or they lose sight of the direction that they're going in the market. Or alternatively, they're building stuff that people don't need, which is a trap, right? They think that's required, but it sounds theoretically great, but no one actually buys it, or if they do buy it, they don't use it. So we try and get the balance right there. It's not easy. It's very tough, but certainly something that I think we're getting better at. And, our engineering philosophy has to align with that approach as well, so that we are releasing stuff every day, sometimes every week, but at the same time, we've got a little bubbling factory of innovation focused on things that are 6 or 12 months out. So that's the way we think about it. That sort of grounds our engineering philosophy and innovation philosophy, and also influences the sort of people that we attract or that are keen to work with us. Also share that focus of short, medium, long-term thinking, or 3-horizon style thinking.
And unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode, but I wanted to thank you for taking the time to visit with me. Frankly, I can't think of a better way to have ended this podcast series, and I, for one, hope we can continue this conversation.
Thanks very much, Tom. Appreciate it. Great talking to you.
This is Tom Fox. Thanks again for listening to my series on 6clicks, who is revolutionizing GRC. You can find out more about 6clicks by checking out their website, www.6, that's the number 6, clicks.com. I've also linked to it in the show notes. I hope you will join me for the rest of this series, as I know you will learn a lot about how 6clicks is truly revolutionizing the GRC and risk and compliance space. This special podcast series, Revolutionizing GRC with 6clicks, is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.